I wanted to create a podcast that was not going to be controversial. Go out to say outrageous things. I'm going global.
Our stories have really been destroyed so much. We can't speak about certain, whether it's sexuality, whether it's certain conflicts in certain nations, whether it's certain racial groups, whether, please listen to us. And then once you listen to us, we can all be like, but guys, it's how women understood.
Controversy is subjective. People who hate themselves are going to go online and project it to other people. Yeah, what do you mean your child died in the house in a fire? You want to
radio broadcaster and podcaster. So it's Daily Moments with Manzo. Yeah, so as Kalin now with Relebogile, Mabotja, actually seasoned broadcasters in so umuntu Theta isiqiniso ukuthi angene kumkhakhelo podcasting so ukuthi ayman mhlawumbe ngabe yini inspiration behind it all. Maybe masingaqala ngawe Relebogile sizwe ukuthi was much of a shift for you or to move from the broadcaster to the podcast space.
So I think most situation it wasn't that much of a shift because at the time when I was doing music radio for Metro FM, those long conversations. I always felt like interview if you. So then COVID happened and I said, okay, let's just shoot something, but because I'm a broadcaster, let's make it television broadcast quality. So the way we ending that podcast, we shot it like a TV show, so it wasn't steering away. It was just by chance that SABC loved it and said, please can we air this? And then we had to say, okay, we were swearing here, we were saying other things here, what do we need to do to edit it for television? So I think what was different is realizing, when you're online, you have fewer limitations and you have a bit more freedom. But because people know me as a broadcaster, I didn't want to drop the quality of the actual broadcast.
So did it make umsebenzi wakho perhaps easy? And I say this in the sense of time as a broadcaster, so it was easy for you to follow it as well?
No, because it's actually harder if you start something new. But now they're like, why are you a podcast? You're doing too much, But it just organically did its own thing because the main goal was to just talk to people and have stories that were not being on national media platforms. That was the goal. And then it just grew its own life. I wanted to have more conversation, more lengthier conversations, particularly with people that people just see on television and they don't really necessarily know their stories. And more than anything, I wanted to create a podcast that was not going to be controversial. That was not going
yeah.
You know what I mean? And it is hard to move people from broadcasting when you're a broadcaster to say I'm a podcaster now because they kind of know you as one thing. But I'm attracted to good content and that's what I wanted to put out. Podcasting is different in the sense we still treat it like a traditional old school talk show. And unlike other podcasters, and I respect, they do everything themselves. I have a makeup team, I have a research team, I treat it like a TV show. So that model for me makes life a lot easier. I do understand the pressure though on certain podcast platforms to spill truths in a different way, if that makes sense. Sometimes people are saying the things, maybe it's not their truth, but it resonates with many people. So I don't knock it because I think it's different styles. There are podcasts out there that specifically go out to say outrageous things to spark conversation. But in the spirit of podcast, I'm just happy we're all talking about things that were not being spoken about. Saying that at the end of the day, in a democratic country that we live in, freedom of speech is at the core of everything that we do. But we have a responsibility to respect different communities that we live with.
Yeah, and maybe moving forward, this is what we're together, and we're on a podcast in maybe the next coming years.
Oh, I'm going global. I'm already global. I mean, I think now I want to, so many people about Malela go and peg saying, I'm from Nigeria, I'm from Louisiana in America, I also want to talk about this thing. So I think Rona, we're just starting. We've just, launched the second chapter. We'll be following up with all guests and there's a woman who came on the show, her child was taken away from her when she was young. 45 years later, she found her son and the show helped to do that. So I'm seeing it being a part of a movement that is creating change in society. I think even having started, and I always say this, I always tell my friends this, that having started even this podcast is such a big thing for me. I started my production company right after COVID, and this was the first thing I wanted to do, and I had to be accountable to myself to say, I have to do it, I have to get a producer, I have to get a team, I have to commit to actually doing it. Maybe I've seen in a couple of years, my podcast is getting on Spotify next week. So yeah. And it's something that I can look back at and say, I was interested in having this kind of conversation, and people are interested in it. What do you mean? That's real-time numbers that you see on radio, you know this. You don't know, you get on, you speak, and then you leave. But with podcasting, I'm really seeing like real-time interaction, and I really hope that it can only grow from here, that we have more things that we do at Moments of Mansfield.
We are storytellers, and our stories have really been destroyed so much. And it's very much about emotions. And that's why even the topic of controversy. It's because in particular people are emotional and they get touched by certain things. If you look at Wankama Podcast 8, the stories that get the most attention, I think even here on the Daily Thetha, some of the episodes that you guys have had that have had the most views, you want to connect it with this story. Whatever the story may be. For so long, and I think Uchimamanda, an author, speaks about this, we need more brown people telling their stories, and we have to be very grateful with Tomakale Kikin and the internet that we now, just with the cell phone and the Wi-Fi, through podcasting and other platforms, we get to do what has always been for select few, like people that can get to a call, get to a Daily Thetha, get to be on SABC One. You look at even on DSTV, Koni channel they trend like cool for the stories they tell, similar to maybe Tyler Perry or Kandama Philip Peshe. And it's because some of those stories people are like, Naso stories kulma, yanking azetu, and to be honest, that democracy it's almost like it's managed by certain people. Amanyama podcast, the reason they became so big is because bakulumi limel kulunywa, yingane from the varsity, yingane from the high school. Also, whether we're discussing makeup or cheetah, it's things that abantu just in normal life. So certain people that like controlling narratives, whether locally or abroad, they will then define and say, no, this is what. But the reality is, and there are certain topics that have become sensitive. Even on our platform, our internet, we can't speak about certain, whether it's sexuality, whether it's certain conflicts in certain nations, whether it's certain racial groups, whether izinto esazigahle thina masihleli sodwa emakhaya sikhuluma ngazo lezi zinto lezi, and our podcast allows that opportunity just to speak. But abantu yazi lezi zinto bengiyicabanga bengithi mhlawumbe ngiyahlanya, but angihlanya ngoba ngizwile uRelebogile, ngizwile uManzi mhlawumbe for example bekhuluma ngalezi zinto.
Well, just to come in there, ukwazi ukuthi kodwa uthi ngayo element le responsibility.
The big question is who decides what is responsible, what's not. And if again, City, we're a democratic nation, why are we not listening to the people? Because that's what the people are saying.
Yeah, but one would also say discrimination is discrimination. It's black or white. Yeah.
So let us have the conversation.
Yeah.
Let us speak about it and then get to a consensus with guys, you're wrong. At least as Vumele. Because in the past, whether it's political, whether it's finance, when you look at Abantu Abamnyama, for example, we went into Maskandi, we've got hip-hop, we've got alternative media today, we've got a stock fair. It's because someone always wants to control, and we're like, guys, please listen to us. Please listen to us. And then once you listen to us, we can all be like, but guys,
so I'm of the view that even controversy is subjective. So I had a guest in my very first episode who said, I am a white person and she's a black woman. So people say that's so controversial. But that's a reality at the end of the day. So it's controversial. So it's a very subjective thing. Where I do agree with Penyo Gehore, and we need platforms to air out conversations that have been managed and that have been closed off so that we can eventually then have a consensus. Ain't like this thing is sharp or fire sharp. Maybe what we can look as the how and the way, because there's certain conversations you can't have inside of a toddler, and certain conversations you can't have, you know what I'm saying? There's certain conversations that a group of men will have when I'm there, and certain conversations they'll have when I'm not there. You understand what I'm saying? So now I do feel controversy is subjective. I still think it is more positive than negative. because it's sparking conversation and forcing us to talk about things we weren't talking about. And we'll get past the teething process. It's a teething process for everybody. In 5 years' time, Peniel himself is going to look at things he said and say, Ish, extra, maybe I should have cursed you. I do believe there's bullying on some podcasts, but specifically to public figures and how public figures live their lives. And just because I've never been at the center of it does not mean I don't see with other celebrities. The other bullying that we don't talk about are those that watch and comment. So each and every one of my guests will always have somebody who will bully them. Yeah, what do you mean your child died in the house in a fire? You didn't want him to leave. You didn't say, like, there will always be there, those people there. So to come back to the responsibility thing, well, now our job is we want to create conversations. Let's put it out there. Now I intentionally on my YouTube channel, the team and I will remove comments that are specifically harmful around sensitive issues like rape and murder and deaths. But we also allow people to have a free space. But there's a lot of bullying. That's human nature. People who hate themselves are going to go online and project it to other people.
But two are really hurt people as well. Shall we think?
No, I'm definitely of the, it's more the commenting, you know, as somebody who's in the podcasting space, it's the people that will want to, and that's an internet issue, right? So when we speak of regulation around that, as a podcaster, you can do so much, either delete the comment or engage with it and explain why that's there. You know, the approach that we take is not to delete the comment, but rather we've got a question and answer session where we talk about certain comments and we engage with why that is problematic. Because sometimes I'd like to believe that some people say things without the knowledge, you know, and so sometimes I'd like to engage that person and say, do you see how this is problematic? Do you see how this is bullying? And hopefully enlighten that commenter or other people that are watching and listening and maybe saw that comment and engaged in that view, not really, you know, take a different perspective, think of it this way, you know, and that's what the podcasting space is about. Starting the conversation, let's chat, let's really engage in real, meaningful, truthful conversations. And the only way we can do that is if we allow everyone to say something.
Platforms like YouTube, I'm not too au fait with places like TikTok, but most of the big social media platforms, with a certain following, you can start to monetize. In the case of myself, which is a very different model to the podcasting, I mean, we got to deal with the SABC. So TV kind of paid for the show. We just had two different versions. The one Diamo TV because it was in the afternoon, and then the one Yamo online. But I don't think we're yet at a place where we're making proper money from podcasts because it's very basic, simple setups, which is good. It's about content and conversations. We're yet to reach a place where people are driving Ferraris from doing podcasts in this country. Unless Peniel's, is that Ferrari yours? I micromanage Manaka on his, you know, he only watches YouTube Kids, and if you get to know the settings, you can start to limit what is allowed, because there are other things that get snuck in. So it's a dual effort, if you know you're going to be, you know, having your child swipe on your iPad or device, limit podcast and chill, because we don't want 10-year-olds watching podcast and chill or Peniel. So it's a dual effort. Even if that warning screen goes up, if you're not there managing your child, they actually want to watch because it says this is not for children. They're like, yeah, I'm there. It is 5 minutes to 1 p.m, which means I'm getting ready for my show. Daily Thetha was super fun, but before we wrap up this vlog, I actually wanted to share with you some of the key takeaways from the conversations that we're having. And one of the key takeaways I'm taking away is, controversy or not, we are in a time where voices need to be heard, where conversations need to be had. There are going to be teething problems in the process. There'll be lawsuits, there'll be upsetting people as we are all navigating the space. And it's not just content creators and podcasters that are navigating the space. It's also viewers who are starting to realize, oh, this is what Relebogile does on Unpacked. Actually, it's not for me. Or, oh, when I come here, this is what I should expect. Or this is what Mac G is doing on Podcast and Chill. This is what Peniel is doing, or Hustler's Corner. And I think there is room for multiple conversations. So my key takeaway is, you know, if you want your voice heard, switch on your phone and start recording. And not all podcasts are visual. Don't forget that. They're audio mediums. And if you really want to get out there, you don't have to be a personality, a well-known person. You can scroll all over YouTube and see the different things that people are doing, even in rural areas. So tell your stories, share your views, Obviously, do it responsibly. If you make a mistake, you come back and you get it right the next time. Don't forget, like and subscribe. Come on.